You guys are in for a treat. I've been getting harassed for years to start a YouTube channel, and this is finally time. Welcome to the Unnamed Project. All right, guys, so yeah, finally, I decided to get this thing going here. I've had people harassing me for pretty much as long as I can remember here to try to get any kind of content out there because apparently I do stuff a little bit out of the ordinary. So you know what? We'll see how it goes. So the first part of this is probably going to be a couple videos about some engine stuff for my trusty little Ford that I've affectionately nicknamed a 007. Maybe I'll tell you why in a later video here, but the first little bit's going to be going for that. And I hope it makes everybody happy that literally have been, just harassing me constantly to try to get this going. So this is for all you guys. You know who you are. So yeah, we'll get going with the first little project for this one, which is going to be getting an engine set up. Should be pretty interesting. All right, guys, so we're back. What I have here is the engine which I'm planning on putting inside 007. So we went over the car a little bit. It has an inline six of some sorts right now. It's I believe it's a 240, but it has a severe rod knock on it. So obviously not the best. We don't want to keep that. So I was going to put this engine inside of it. A couple reasons, actually. First, I'm going to get rid of that rod knock. Secondly, I'm going to have an engine which is great on fuel. And thirdly, it's great content. So I said, you know what, I'll put it on there and it'll be great for you guys. So what we got here is a mid-production run 3.8 Ford. Unfortunately, this engine is fuel injected, or was fuel injected, which means that it does not have a distributor. It has a cam sync instead, has injectors, and does not have a throttle body which will accept a carburetor that I want to put on there. So it'll be quite interesting to go through all this there. We have to take the cam sensor out. We're going to be building our own HEI distributor to put on there. It'll be a lot easier when we're trying to deal with the ignition and all that. Then afterwards for the intake, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge there, but you know what though? Take you guys along for the ride, kind of show you what's going on, the steps that I take to do this, and I'll show you exactly what the issue is just now. All right, guys, so we're back here. I'm going to go a little over what the concerns are with this engine, in my case. I know a lot of people would just be like, you should keep the injection, but you know what though? Good old carburetors, they always work. So, like I mentioned earlier on, this engine here was from a mid-production, I believe it was a Super Coupe, a Thunderbird of some sorts. It had a supercharger on top, which we no longer have. So basically, this engine was pulled because a supercharger exploded. You know what? It happens. And now this is my problem. So what I'm planning on doing is to block off the existing hole here simply by putting a plate. What I would like to do is to simply put a carburetor in the existing intake manifold. It's obviously going to be a bit of a challenge. And it's not going to work the greatest, but you know what? Don't really care. We'll upgrade afterwards. So the first issue I have is, as you can see, there's nothing here. So I can't put a carburetor on there. So what I would like to do would be to take the intake off, because I'm not going to do it over the engine. That makes no sense at all. I'm just going to fill the cylinders full of crap and whatever, right? So we're going to dress this engine down, cut a hole into the intake, kind of find the best place to put it. I'm thinking maybe what I'll end up doing is welding on a little bit of a sheet metal kind of plenum, if you will, and then cut out the inside and put the carburetor just a little bit higher. It'll be a little bit interesting, but I think it'll work a lot better than trying to have the carburetor all the way down at the bottom right here. Here we got another view of this cam sync I was talking about. So I haven't looked into it yet to see exactly where it goes down, but I'm gonna go ahead and assume it's probably the same as every other Ford ever, where they simply took the engines that were with a distributor, simply use this cam sync to drive, obviously like a cam sensor, and then a shaft that goes down and drives the oil pump. So what I'm planning on doing, and this is fun because I'm discovering a lot of the stuff as I'm going on with you, is take off this cam sync. And what I've done in the past is you can cut it down, right down the flange here, it's aluminum. So you can take that part off, use the bottom part of the shaft, and then mount another distributor up top. So when we go through that, keep your eye on it. It should be a pretty interesting little project. All right. Okay, we're gonna crack on with this. The next step obviously is gonna be to start tearing everything down. So there's a lot of random stuff on here that I am not going to use. I still have the chain from when I pulled this thing. That's gonna have to come out. All the wiring is gonna have to come out. I'm gonna pull out the cam sync I was talking about, and then I'm gonna pull out this intake manifold because I'm gonna have to modify it. So I'm not a huge fan of modifying stuff while it's on an engine. You never know when the dust or debris or chips of metal, or you might even lose a tool in there. I've seen that before. So we're gonna take all that off, lift the valve covers over there, have a little look. You know, you could tell a whole lot by the condition of the engine underneath the valve cover. So if it's got this thick of caked on mud, we might reevaluate the situation a little bit. So anyways, I'm just gonna tear on with this, and yeah, we'll see what's up. Now, I know a lot of people are very much into labeling all the bolts and all that. I have a very, very weird system when it comes to this. So I grab all the bolts, then I throw them into a bucket. That's about as far as my system goes. Bolts, 99% of the time, only have one place to go. And then if you have, let's say this intake manifold has, I don't know, 12 bolts. Well, you start looking, you know you need 12 bolts, you know what size of bolt you need, and you look afterwards when you spread all the bolts out of the bucket and like, oh, lo and behold, you have 12 that are the same. So that's how I go through all this, and just saves a lot of time. I know a lot of people go with Ziplocs and whatnot. Great system, don't get me wrong. I'll never judge anybody that does it. Just not my cup of tea, really. I go on and I find it's a lot faster that way, and you know what? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, so I keep that system. These style of hose clamps are super old school, and you never know if they're going to come out. So let's find out. Take two. Let's be honest, if I wouldn't make a mess, nobody would believe that I did some work. All right, so ran into a first snag here. The cam sinks are always lined up so that they don't move, basically. You can't adjust them just like you would a distributor. And then the retainer, the fastener that holds it in place, is one of those little safety things in the center. Fortunately, I don't have those here, but what I do have is a punch and a hammer. Usually it works. So we're going to go to plan B here, which is just going to be to hammer the fastener off. Now, if you couldn't quite see what I was talking about before, the center has a little lock safety stud sticking out, so you have to buy a set of Torx, which are drilled out for that. They do exist, I just don't have one here, so of course, like everybody else, I had to take the hard way. So this I was really curious about. Remember I was mentioning that I had to pull the cam sync out? The cam sync, hopefully, doesn't have any surprises for me. This is like automotive archaeology. Perfect. So we pulled out, so I can get that out there. And there we go. So this part that was down here actually is the part that goes to drive the oil pump. Definitely gonna need this one again. This is the gear that runs off the camshaft, and then when the gear turns into here, it rotates the shaft, which does two things at that point. So it drives the oil pump, and then afterwards, it gives a signal to the computer to tell it, hey, this is where I'm at, fire this, fire that, do stuff, do not do stuff. So this part here is gonna come in a little bit later on into our project. I'm missing some parts right now, but more to come on this guy. Should be pretty interesting. When you come down to this, it's always really interesting because I don't know the condition of this engine until I pull the intake manifold off. So I always get a little, I don't know, excited, I guess. Interesting how with a little bit of YouTube magic, none of the bolts were stuck. All right, all right, all right. Let's use our eyes to see. Yeah, that was pretty much not sealed. All right, let's see what we got. Not bad at all. If you're noticing a little bit of a look of confusion on my face, you're bang on. So did a little bit of research, obviously. You don't want to go into something blind when you start doing these kinds of projects. But It's my understanding that there's supposed to be a balance shaft in here, like right here, for example. And the provisions for the bearings are there. There doesn't seem to be any oil holes that were drilled out for it, which is very interesting. So, yeah, definitely going to research that one a little bit more to try to find out exactly what's going on here. But no, it's puzzling me, I gotta say. We're going to pull off these valve covers and inspect what it looks like under there. Big moment. Whew, look at that. It was just asking to fall off. Okay. Okay, at first glance, it actually looks really good. Another bonus is that these gaskets are of some, yeah, they're silicone. I wasn't sure if they were rubber or not, but being made out of silicone with, yeah, they do. So I don't know if you can tell, but they're made out of silicone and there's a little metal stop in there, right? So you can't crush them to make them squirt out to the sides or whatever. So I'm going to reuse these. Obviously, I'm going to put a little bit of sealant on there just to say that it works. I'll clean them up and all that stuff. Got to be a little bit gentle with them because these are some of the parts that I couldn't find. So what I'm looking at right now is for broken springs or super, super heavily corroded stuff. Any part that seems to be mushroomed out. What I mean by mushroomed out is that sometimes behind the rockers here, where the push rods are, they can push in so much because they're running out of lubrication or whatnot. They actually come and they start kind of mushrooming out to the side. And then afterwards you have problems where the valve doesn't open properly. Your rockers start becoming a little bit loose, and then you have all sorts of issues that come for that. So I was looking for that. Any signs of metal, that's always a big one. Any signs of heavy, heavy sludge, which this one doesn't have. So, hey, so far we're gonna keep going because it's looking pretty good. Here we got the intake manifold that I pulled off. So this one, pretty hard to hide it. There's gonna be a lot of work to do on it. So as I mentioned earlier on, this hole right here, kind of a problem. But that one I'm not too worried about. I don't know if you can see where this nice blue square is. That is where I plan on modifying this intake the most. So what I want to do onto this, I thought about just welding on a 2-barrel adapter onto here. But if you saw how this intake was designed, it's super awkward. It is paper thin. Oh my God. Like, it was definitely designed for forced induction because there's no way a carburetor, you know what? I take that back. A carburetor would be able to deal with this no problem at all, but it's just not going to flow properly. So my plan, I'm going to come up, cut this center section out. Then I'm simply going to build like a pyramid almost. So a 4-sided, this thing. No, basically I'm going to have 4 sheets of aluminum coming up here on a slight angle that meet up here. What I bought to make my life a little easier is basically a 2-barrel carb spacer. I know a lot of you guys are going to be thinking, a 2-barrel, a carburetor, what's wrong with this guy? Well, you know what? This is only a 3.8. So I mean, I don't plan on building this thing up to the moon. All I want to do is just be able to use what I got here. So a 2-barrel is going to be more than enough for what I want to do. So like I mentioned, I got a 2-barrel riser. I'm planning basically on building up and then having the carb spacer, riser, whatever you want to call it, right on top here. and then simply bolting my 2-barrel on the top of that. Should be pretty interesting. I mean, of course it's cast aluminum, it's dirty, it's super, super oil impregnated. You can see all the way around, but should be pretty interesting. So hopefully I can get some good footage of the welding, but we're not quite there just yet. So the first thing I'm gonna do obviously is to try to cut this out cleanly, and then I'm gonna have to mock up my pieces. I like using cardboard templates because then you just have something nice and easy to trace out, and then you can just cut in the lines and you're good to go. So once that's done, I'll mock it up with tape quick, see if it fits what I want to do with it. And then once that's good to go, then I'll just transfer it to a sheet of aluminum, which I already have, cut it out, and then tack everything in place. And we'll kind of see from there if everything works good. Shoo-wee. All right. I'll tell you what, the first little bit was something else. Was it really? I don't think so. Time to go back home right now. I'm gonna have myself a nice little libation. Oh, it's gonna be good. It is so hot today. Make sure you join us next week. I'm gonna be posting, try to be posting every week, every second week around there until I kind of get the hang of it, and then we'll kind of see what's up, right? So I'll put a little link up there so you can go check the next one. Hey, if you like this, make sure you leave a comment, like, share, subscribe, all that. I would love to read some of the comments about this nonsense. All right, so until next time, your man Porter here. We'll see you on the next one.